I want to say welcome back. We're so excited that you guys are back in the main room. This is going to be your live Q&A with two of our mentors. I know you got to meet a few of them in the breakout rooms, but we are here with two very special mentors. We have Sarah and Kate who are going to lead the Q&A. This is your opportunity to type some questions in chat, and we will relay them to our mentors for you. I want to say they're going to introduce themselves, but again, please feel free to type your questions and let us know if you have any questions for them. And let's get into. I know some of them are still probably working. I see some classrooms. There's still some testing going on, but we're going to get started with our live Q&A. So Sarah and Kate, if you want to take it away.
Awesome. Welcome, guys, to the Q&A. I know Sarah and I are super excited to be here with you. Some of you guys might have already met me in the breakout room. So hello again to all who I was just hanging out with. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. And Sarah and I are going to get started with some introductions and give you guys a little bit more of a background about ourselves and what we're studying, what we're involved in school. As we are sharing this information, please feel free to interrupt at any time, to unmute your mic or put questions in the chat if anything comes up that you guys want to discuss or ask about. So I'm going to get started with my introduction. My name, like I said, is Kate Shinneman. I am a rising junior now, actually, just finished up my sophomore year at the University of Notre Dame. And I am studying computer science engineering, and I have a minor in engineering corporate practice, which is basically just a general business minor that kind of helps combine some basic business concepts with engineering and integrates them both together because they are pretty related if you want them to be. And that's an interest that I have. And then I also have a minor in real estate. And my Engineering Tomorrow involvement is, of course, that I'm a college mentor. And some of my specific interests within engineering include software development. So I'm super interested in app development, in website design, all those kinds of things, and learning a little bit more about that currently. And I'm also very interested in healthcare, which is not something that a lot of people think of when they think of computer science, but I'll talk a little bit more about my interest in healthcare and my kind of engineering journey that led me there in the next slide, but I've been lucky to find some connections between computer science and healthcare during my time at school. And I'm also super interested in UX, which stands for user experience, and design work, which is kind of just the process of making websites intuitive, making technology easy and helpful to interact with for people. So kind of my engineering journey started in high school. My high school had a program called Project Lead the Way, where they had engineering courses. And I actually took the biomedical track of these courses. So I took 4 years of biomedical classes throughout high school. I loved these classes. And I was interested maybe in going on a pre-med track because of my experience in these courses. And so I started out as a chemical engineer because I knew I was kind of interested in pre-med, but I also knew that I didn't want to commit to that quite yet. I wanted something that had a little bit more options and a little bit more variety. So that's why I went chemical engineering. Also in high school, I was involved in student council and mock trial. I played a couple sports. I was an ambassador for my school, so I led tours. So as you can see, like with mock trial, that's kind of more of a law track. I did biomedical. I really have a lot of interests. And so that's kind of made it a little bit difficult choosing my major and stuff. But the great thing about engineering is that I've actually really been able to find ways to combine all of my interests within engineering. And so during my time at Notre Dame, like I said, when I started, I was a chemical engineer, and my freshman year, second semester was actually my first ever introduction to programming. Pretty quickly after I started, I ended up switching my major to computer science, which has been a great decision. As an engineer at Notre Dame, I'm part of the Grand Challenge Scholars Program, as well as the iTread Scholars Program, which is a data science, more data science focused program that I am beginning next year. And as part of the Grand Challenge Scholars Program, I do research where I am researching methods of reducing incidences of lead poisoning among children in South Bend. So this has been great to kind of combine my interests in health and biology along with computer science. So we have been developing kind of some database work to connect all of the different people who are stakeholders in this problem of lead poisoning in children, and hopefully be able to kind of streamline that process, be able to increase communication, track data better, and ultimately be able to prevent all these cases of lead poisoning. So that's the goal that we are working on. I worked with them over the school year. I'm still working with them this summer, and I am going to study abroad soon in a couple of weeks to Italy, which I'm super excited about as well. Another thing that I've been involved with during my time at Notre Dame is the Student International Business Council. So like I said, I'm also super interested in business, which is also kind of reflected in my minors. And I was lucky enough to be on the Microsoft project. I was a member last year, and then I had the opportunity to lead it this year, which has been awesome. We were able to travel out to Seattle headquarters, learn a little bit more about what they do. And throughout the semester, we developed some business plans for them, different ones for each semester, and we were able to present those to Microsoft employees at headquarters, which was really cool. I also had a software development internship with Reynolds and Reynolds last summer, which gave me some cool experience as well. And that is a company that deals with car dealerships, some data on the back end, and provides them with softwares that help run their company. So like I said, I have many interests. I have a little slide with some photos as well. These top 2 photos are some mock app resources or some mock app prototypes that I created as part of the app that we are developing to try to tackle this problem of lead poisoning. And we conducted a conference to get some feedback from community stakeholders regarding updates and improvements that we could make with that app before we started programming it. This is also a photo of me in my pink rain boots. It was raining, but we were going out doing some lead soil sampling from houses in the South Bend community, trying to kind of target down where this lead is coming from. And then in the bottom left corner here, I have a photo from this semester, my team and I, when we traveled to Microsoft, which is awesome. And then just this little Altera board over here is from a class that I did, or a class that I took this past semester, just a little project that we made with some programming on the back end that connected, and these switches were able to display different things based on our program. And then in this top right corner over here, this is just my friends and I at a Notre Dame football game. So just a little bit of the Notre Dame experience outside of engineering. But yes, like I said, I have a lot of different interests. I've been able to combine all of them with even just in computer science, but within engineering as a whole, there's so many different opportunities. So if you guys have any questions about that, please do not hesitate to ask. And I'm going to pass it over to Sarah now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate. And hi, everyone. You're going to see that there are some overlaps between me and Kate's interests, particularly in the healthcare and business field. But a brief introduction. My name is Sarah. I'm a rising senior at MIT, majoring in biological engineering and management. So that's a double major. I've been involved with Engineering Tomorrow for oh my God, many years now. And my main interest in engineering stem around immunotherapy, so harnessing the power of our own immune system to target complex diseases, regenerative medicine, which kind of falls around similar lines, and then more recently, women's health, which I can talk a little bit more about later. And that allows me to put together my interest in advocacy with my interests in STEM and research. So, oh yes, thank you. So brief overview of what I've been up to. When I was in high school, I did what I like to call freelance science, where I was basically asking fun questions that I thought would be fun to answer. And then I would develop my own experiments to test those hypotheses. So I did independent research leveraging biology to combat climate change, algal blooms, and antibiotic resistance in sophomore, junior, and senior year. And this was very self-starter, like some of my experiments were in my basement. You can see some pictures of that on the next slide when I show you. But then I was fortunate enough to be able to move into bigger, better labs at MIT. So my first 2 years, I was in a microbiology lab where I was doing really science-based bench research, investigating how bacteria can talk to one another to exchange each other's DNA. So imagine if I shook your hand and I was able to pass the trait of having dark hair to you, and your hair would go from blonde to black. So then after my sophomore year, I interned at a company called CRISPR Therapeutics. If you guys have ever heard of CRISPR-Cas9, it's this gene editing technology. And it allows us to target and potentially cure a lot of these really complex, really devastating diseases that we see right now, like diabetes and other rare diseases that we find in children. So I was doing stuff with stem cells, really cool work there. That got me very interested in translational work and how we can take our science and combine it with engineering principles that you guys are learning in today's lab to make real change in the world. So then I kind of had a brief stint in business. I was kind of trying to see how my research experience played out in the business world and how I could translate my discoveries into the commercial realm. I interned at a venture capital firm. I can talk about that if anyone's interested. And now I do research at the Koch Institute for Integrative Cancer Research at MIT, where I'm developing blood tests for early cancer detection, and particularly for difficult to diagnose cancers like cervical cancer and colorectal cancer. You can just tap through all the animations. I realize that these are not working well. Okay, so these are just some fun pictures of when I started. So the top left you can see is a very haphazardly made set of bins that I used to conduct my experiments in high school in. This was in my basement. I bought these lights on sale for $5. And you can see, if you pay close attention, there's a tape roller on top of the light to keep it level. So you see, resourcefulness is a very key skill in engineering. And that's one of the things that you guys are learning today, how to use the materials around you to create solutions. But then I moved on. I was doing research in the back of my biology class. You can see all the chairs stacked up on the tables there. These are my 16 flasks of algae that my biology teacher didn't appreciate having in her classroom that much. Eventually, I moved on, biology department. And on the left are some pretty pictures of my cells that I took the other day. And some people in my lab also took, and me at CRISPR. So I can answer any questions about healthcare as well, bioengineering, chem engineering, the intersection. I can also answer questions if people are interested about machine learning in a healthcare context.
Well, I'm going to hop in here and just ask the first question because I think we're going to get a little bit of action in the chat, but I just want to say, so it's June. Classes are almost over for these high schoolers. I'm not sure how many are seniors or freshmen, but just some advice on what do you think is a good activity for the summer to keep yourself going and to keep motivation going, and maybe some interest in engineering or any interest. What do you guys suggest for these students who are just wrapping up their school year?
That's a great question. My recommendation for high school would just be to try everything that you can. It sounds like Sarah, Sarah had some really amazing high school experiences and some research that she did, which was super advanced and definitely very impressive. I personally did not have those kinds of experience. I didn't have the knowledge of what I wanted to do yet. And so for me, if you guys have interests like that, that is so awesome to get started on those kinds of things. I would say the most helpful thing I did was just try to try new things. And even like I said, what I ended up switching my major to, that was something that I hadn't even learned about until my second semester of my freshman year of college. So it's not late necessarily, but it was a little bit late to the game to be introduced to the thing that I would be choosing to study for the rest of my college career. And it would have been awesome if I had been able to put myself out there a little bit and look into Girls Who Code, look into all these different online resources, which are all available to you. So I would definitely recommend, in today's day and age, we have so many resources, whether it be YouTube, the library, Google, different camps in your community, whether it be Engineering Tomorrow Labs, which are such a great resource for learning about the different fields of engineering. But even if your interests might lie somewhere else in a different field of STEM or, in a different field altogether, I would just say that trying to just try new things in general, put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to learn about things that you think you won't be interested in. Because I personally did not think that computer science would be for me. It was not an interest that I had, and I ended up really enjoying it. So I would definitely say that's especially what high school is all about. That's what school is all about in general, is learning about yourself and what you want to really target down and narrow in on.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what I was going to say. Adding a tiny bit more, you'll be surprised how many people around you want to help you learn about what you like. So if you are even the slightest bit interested in, I don't know, physics or astrophysics, something, you can email the professor of a university near you and say, "Hi, I'm a high schooler that's really interested in your research on X topic. Would you mind hopping on a Zoom call and talking to me about it for 30 minutes? And I promise you, as a researcher, there is nothing that researchers love more than talking about their research, especially to students who are really excited about what they're doing. So feel free to use the resources around you and even if they're not in your geographical vicinity, like if you want to talk to an MIT professor, you can shoot us an email.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. That's actually the way that I got involved in the lead research that I'm doing, was just sending cold emails, which can feel uncomfortable at times. It's definitely kind of putting yourself out there, but it's so worth it. That's how some of the best opportunities are found. So I see that we are getting some questions in the chat. Thank you, Jillian. And the first one is from Mercy Academy, which is, which high school courses prepared you the most for college? So for me personally, with the classes that I took freshman year, I would say that the classes that really were directly applicable to the things I was learning, definitely calculus. It comes up a lot in a lot of different things, even if you might not want it to, but calculus is super helpful to really get a good foundation in. I also found my chemistry course to be very relevant to a lot of the things I was doing, especially freshman year, not so much now. And like I had kind of touched on, my biomedical classes in high school really helped me narrow down my interests. And so this is kind of what I would wrap it up to say as well. Of course, your classes in high school, if you choose to go into engineering, those math and science classes are going to be very helpful. No matter which field you go into, you're going to have some good basic English skills to maybe, whether it be writing lab reports, or whether it be writing essays, sending emails, always important as well. But in general, really just figuring out what you can learn from all of your classes. And like I said, with my biomedical classes, and with trying those new things, just recognizing that pretty much every class you have, it is there for a reason, even if it's not your favorite course, and even if you don't want to major in something super specific or super specifically related to that class, it's still super helpful knowledge to have. Realizing that you might not be super interested in something still helps you find that final goal that you're looking for. So for me personally, those are probably my most helpful classes in college, would be that calculus, those math courses, and then the chemistry courses. But again, that's going to change depending if you have different majors.
Yeah, this is also not something that I did in high school, but something that I wish I did in high school. I wish I took a computer science course, a coding course. Every engineering field, every science field, actually every field in the world now requires some level of coding literacy. I will tell you, my life improved drastically when I learned how to teach Python to do the things that I didn't want to do. So for example, I was in Gen Chem my first year, and I really, really hated doing, if anyone has taken chemistry in high school, you guys have to do those titrations, you have to calculate the pH of solutions. I really didn't like doing it. So I wrote a Python program to do it for me. And it was great. I never had to do it again. So that proves to you that even if you're not majoring in computer science in college, or not planning on majoring in computer science, that coding skill is still super important. And if your school doesn't offer computer science, there are tons of. Hello. Okay, what other types of machines besides catapults do you find fascinating? You want to take that one, Kate?
Sure, I can go for that. So I also want to second what Sarah just said as well. I know even my friends who are majoring in business, all of them had to take some kind of coding classes, whether they liked it or not. So it definitely is helpful. And computer science is one of the engineering majors, or just one of the majors in general, that has so many resources available. You can definitely find some stuff about that if you're interested in learning. But kind of bring you back to what kinds of machines besides catapults do I find fascinating. I actually would say computers are one of the most fascinating machines. It's so related to machine learning as well. The things that we can teach computers to do, the things on the back end of how they're working, it really is so amazing. Even when you understand how the code works, understanding why it works on a different level, it's even more interesting and fascinating. And so that's definitely kind of something that is going to be becoming even ever more relevant as we move forward, and as technology becomes more and more prevalent in society. Understanding computers and understanding how we can use technology for our advantage to benefit society is really one of my top interests. And so I would say that's the kind of machine that I find the most fascinating as it relates to me. Okay, another question I see is, what is the most complex project that you've worked on, and what do you do if a team member is not participating in all of the work? Do you want to talk about this, Sarah, or do you want me to?
I can take it.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think I can talk about the project that I did in high school, and I think maybe that will be more relevant to you guys. I was in my junior year of high school. I was working on trying to find a biological and sustainable method of eradicating harmful algal blooms. And I was inspired by this insane growth of algae that was sprouting up in my grandma's pond near her house. Wanted to fix that. So I was working in a team of 3, and the 2 other people also went to my school. We were good friends, but I think there were a lot of places where we didn't know exactly how to work with one another. And I think the thing about working in a team is that it takes time to figure out how to mesh your skills well with the skills of the members in your team. So for example, it took me a little bit of time, took me a few months, actually took me a few years to be able to figure out that one of my team members was really good at being resourceful, and she could create things out of nothing. So what I would do is every time we had some huge problem, which there were many huge problems because we were working out of my basement, I would call her up and she would come and she would fix something, and she was very good under pressure, so she could figure that out. My other team member, she was really good at numbers. She was really good at statistics. So in the end, I ended up putting her in charge of doing all our statistical analysis, all of our data analysis, and that was extremely helpful for when we were actually decoding what our data meant and whether it was meaningful. So biggest takeaway of this is that if a team member is not participating in all of the work, you have to kind of try to figure out what it is that they're good at and what it is that they like to do. And hopefully together those skills can create a stronger team. But it does take time and it takes a lot of patience.
Definitely. I would totally agree with that. And I would also add on to it by saying not only recognizing everyone's strengths in the group is super helpful, but it's also very kind of integral, at least in my opinion, to recognize your own weaknesses. And this is something that I think made me a much better team member once I was able to identify. Sometimes I kind of have the weakness of wanting a little bit too much control, maybe in a group project that I'm on. And once I realized that and was able to identify that and kind of recognize that it's going to be up to me to kind of release that control, trust other people throughout that process as well, I think it made me a much better team member as well. And so I would definitely say that kind of thinking about those things too can help the team's progress overall. And I see we have another question, which is, how do you think that machine learning will impact our futures? This is a very great question, a very loaded question, and something that I think we've all been thinking about a lot, especially with the rise of ChatGPT, all these AIs, which are kind of being molded by the process of machine learning and becoming very advanced. As a computer science major, this is something that, you know, is probably going to have a large effect on me as machine learning is starting to teach computers how to code for themselves. But I will say, I don't feel as though I am necessarily perfectly capable or equipped to answer the question of how it will impact our futures, but I definitely do think that it will have a large impact. And I think that kind of my role in that what I'm choosing to do is continue to learn about it. I'm taking an artificial intelligence course in the fall. And I think that hopefully by having enough people who understand how machine learning works, who really understand artificial intelligence and are able to work with technology, we can shape machine learning to have a very positive impact on our futures rather than something to be afraid of. I know that sometimes artificial intelligence and all of these things can be very daunting. And so while I don't necessarily know for sure how it will impact our futures, I definitely feel strongly that it will become very relevant and have a very big impact. So I'm hoping that I can you know, and with all of this education, that we can work toward making that impact a positive one.
Yeah, and I mean, the effects of machine learning are very interdisciplinary. You have computer scientists working with engineers, you have engineers learning how to do machine learning themselves. There are packages online that teach you how to do it and teach you how to integrate your data with those classification algorithms. I think one of the fields that's really going to be impacted by this in the next few years is diagnostics and clinical decision support. So let's say you have 2 pictures of an X-ray, and if you have a human looking at these 2 pictures, they can't tell the difference. But a computer who's looked at thousands of these images can tell that the image on the right has cancer and the image on the left doesn't, even though to the human eye, they look exactly the same. And this is going to greatly speed up our diagnostic abilities to tackle these really big diseases. And inevitably, if we can diagnose these diseases earlier, we have a better chance of treating them. So I think that's one of the examples, and it's probably also why Kate and I are so interested in the intersection between technology and healthcare, because there is a lot of potential there.
I see another question we have is, what was a science lab that went wrong for you or that you really didn't like, and how did you handle that? So For me personally, the last science lab that I had to take was chemistry. And so my general chemistry lab sometimes would be a challenge. We would have a lot of issues with equipment in that lab, which could be frustrating because it was pretty out of my control when the labs before us wouldn't charge the meters that we had to use, or all the equipment that we had would not really be prepared for us. But I would say, there was nothing I could really do about that. I just kind of had to wait. I'm not really sure if this is, but yeah, just kind of maintaining patience there and doing what you can in the situation. Not every science lab is going to be your favorite thing. Not every class you take is going to be your favorite thing, but that's just kind of something that you recognize doesn't last forever. You just have to get through that one period. But another example of kind of a project, it's not exactly a science lab, but a project that went wrong for me was the water valve. If you were in the breakout room, you might have heard me talking about this. We had to 3D print a water valve for a project in my engineering class freshman year. And something had gone wrong with our CAD software design, in which our water valve printed solid all the way through. And so clearly water could not flow through that. And when we didn't recognize this until we printed it. It didn't print solid all the way through, but the ends were closed. And so we kind of just had to make do with that and figure out, how can we go from here? We kind of used that engineering process to go back through. We didn't have time to redesign it and re-3D print it, but we were able to make some modifications, very scientific modifications, where we just took a screwdriver and broke the end of it so that the water could flow through. I would definitely say that within engineering, within STEM fields, and really within any field, being able to be flexible, to be adaptive to those problems that come, just keep a calm head, and just handling the problems that come your way is definitely beneficial. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Maybe if you were looking for something else, feel free to let me know as well.
Yeah, and Kate, I'm getting some direct messages with questions, so I'm just going to read those. One question is, what do you think are some major qualities for a student to have when applying to college? I can take a stab at this first. I think it's a good question for us to end up on anyway. So the two things that I like to tell people to focus on in their college applications is both their focus and their passion. So when I say focus, I mean academic achievement. I mean the numbers, I mean your test scores, and I mean how much you challenged yourself in school. So did you take honors classes? Did you take AP classes? Did you take classes that you were interested in and you took them at a higher level? That could mean like I take Art 3 and Art 4, which I did in high school. And like it's just challenging yourself in the fields that you're interested in studying in college. And then the passion part, that's really about having something that you really like to do. And it's totally okay if you don't have one thing that you really like to do. You can also have a passion at doing many things, right? You can have a passion at learning about many things. So for me, my passion was really biological research. I really loved to do it. I loved the problem solving that was in it. And I wrote about that in my essays, and I made it abundantly clear to whoever was reading my application that this was who I was and this was what I wanted to do when I grew up. And there's also another group of people that have tried a lot of different things in high school and are still kind of figuring themselves out, which is like totally normal and totally okay. And they wrote about how they have all these passions in high school and how all these passions have contributed to them wanting to go to X university and figure out what they want to do further. So both of those are totally valid, but you want to emphasize that you are passionate, and you are a human who has diverse interests and who is going to do something they love to do.
Yeah, I definitely think that's awesome advice. And I would say that my advice is kind of similar, but what I always think of when I think of the college application process is, and what I tried to do is really determine all the schools that I was applying to, what is their goal and what is their mission as a university. And so for everywhere it's going to be different, but you can learn a lot about a school and what they're working toward by looking at their website, figuring out what kind of organizations they have, what the school is investing into, and just looking at their mission statement. And then figure out for yourself, figure out if that's something that you feel passionate about, that you feel aligns with you. And if it does, then maybe that school is a good decision for you. And if that's how you feel, then in your application, make sure that you're demonstrating how your values, your interests, and how you as a person are going to help advance their mission. So demonstrate in your essays and in your responses how your previous actions support their values and how you align well with the mission that they are working toward. And then they will be able to see that in you. And I would also just recommend to always stay authentic in your college applications. not every essay you write has to be a crazy story or a life-changing event that happened to you. It can really be anything that you feel represents who you are. Some of the best college essays are, maybe kind of about mundane topics, maybe very simple things that might not catch your eye, but it's about that authenticity, and it's about that genuineness that kind of is portrayed through the essays that you write that really reflect who you are and how you align with their mission. So that would be my biggest advice. And I think we are kind of coming to the end here. You guys had amazing questions. So thank you so much for your participation.
Well, I was going to hop in and say that, yes, our time is up, but I want to say, I think you guys did an amazing job. Thank you, Sarah and Kate, for leading such a great session. And yes, we did have some amazing questions from our group. So thank you so much for that. And just so you know,